The rule of law equals America's stability. That's the fundamental fact we address in tonight's preamble. Current source of America's multiple crises at the southern border, aside from a lawless leftist administration, is our nutty, crazy, stupid, vacuous, and nonsensical asylum law. This law was so poorly written that I'm shocked it wasn't etched on recycled paper using a crayon. The law allows anyone to utter the A word, that's asylum, and get immediate access to the U.S. legal system. The A word triggers a process that pro-illegal immigration politicians of both political parties use as an excuse to usher in illegal aliens into our country with a promise to appear in court to adjudicate their asylum status, see if they qualify. Now, as you know, these politicians never followed up, and millions of illegal aliens simply blended into America over the decades, leading to an illegal alien population in the United States that's around 30 million folks, according to some estimates. The vast majority of Americans oppose the Democrats' and the Republicans' support of illegal immigration. Enter President Trump, one of the few presidents we've had in decades who was dedicated to enforcing the will of the people and U.S. immigration law. In fact, his pledge to address and stop illegal immigration into the United States was the biggest reason for his election in 2016. President Trump implemented the Remain in Mexico policy. It respected the spirit and letter of the law, and unlike past presidents, respected the will of the American people. This law said that those claiming asylum would get their day in court, and to ensure that they would show up for their hearing, they would have to wait in Mexico, the nation that allowed them transit to America, an alleged safe country, until a court date was available. President Trump knew and understood that over 80% of asylum claims do not meet the criteria for asylum laid out in U.S. law. This policy of Trump's stopped the Obama-era border crises. Fast forward to the lawless Biden administration. Biden stopped the Remain in Mexico policy, telling would-be illegal aliens from all over the globe, come to the United States.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
And they came. An estimated 1.5 million illegal aliens have gained entry into the United States since Biden began his occupation of the Oval Office. Those are the ones we can credibly count. The number is likely closer to 2 million. Now, many of these illegal aliens have brought the China virus with them, contributing to Biden losing control of the pandemic. Many of these illegal aliens have brought the dreaded Delta variant with them. Biden has released them into the United States without our knowledge or consent, leading to our people suffering from increased infection rates these past few months. That brings us to today. Haitians have flooded our border. 2 days ago, Fox News put estimates around 4,000 illegal aliens. Yesterday at 8 o'clock Eastern, that number had more than doubled to 10,000. God knows how many illegal aliens are crammed under a Texas bridge in Del Rio, Texas tonight. This is the latest chapter in Joe Biden's humanitarian, public health, and national security crises. Haiti has less than 1% vaccination rate for the China virus, so we're confident that Team Biden is serving up more infections for Latino communities in South Texas. He's also serving up a sanitation crisis for both Americans and illegal aliens alike. Aside from Joe Biden and his administration committing crimes against humanity, Joe Biden is also in violation of U.S. law and a Supreme Court order. In late August, the Supreme Court of the United States reinstated President Trump's Remain in Mexico program. That program was instituted to prevent lawless people like Joe Biden from taking advantage of our aforementioned poorly worded, intellectually inept, and childish asylum law. Thousands of illegal aliens at the border are proof that Joe Biden and his socialists are in open defiance of a Supreme Court order. Each one of those illegal aliens should be on their way to a facility in Mexico. But Biden refuses. He thinks he's above the law. And so far, he's getting away with it. Not a peep from GOP leadership like Mitch McConnell. Not a peep from Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who was on this network last night. It seems the GOP has accepted the double standard being instituted by the new axis of evil, the left-wing biased press, permanent Washington, and the Socialist Democrat Party. That double standard says that Joe Biden and any other left-winger in government and in any state can break our laws. The GOP will unite to oppose none of it. You see, this is the problem with electing socialists. In their efforts to seize power, they ignore the laws they don't like. That causes lawlessness, pain, and chaos. On the other hand, a nation of laws that enforces those laws equally produces peace and stability. So now it appears to be up to the states. What will Texas do? Joe Biden is in violation of an order from the Supreme Court of the United States. Is Texas or any other state obliged to do anything Joe Biden's government says? In other words, how can any state be accused of violating a law or edict imposed by Joe Biden if Joe Biden himself doesn't comply with a law? Only dictators think they're above the laws they impose on others. Joe Biden isn't a dictator. Is he?
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.